day after Western States, my contract with North Face ended. Yeah, I was leading there. Found myself in a pack with Hayden Hawks and Dan Jones.
If you're living your dream right now?
I would say it's even kind of beyond a dream.
Hey Rod, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for taking time from your busy schedule. First, I'll make a little introduction about you for people that maybe didn't hear about Rod. I guess that's not lots of them. You're 29 years old and you are a very, very, very good ultra trail runner. Mostly you run 100K or 100 miles. Actually, on your UTMB index on 100 miles, you are seventh overall from all the people on this planet, which is just crazy. Um, Actually, this year you were second in Western States with the time 14:24 and 15 seconds, which is amazing time. Everybody who was watching also saw how Hayden Hawks was catching you. So you're gonna tell us a bit more how this, even if you knew about that, and how did you think something can go wrong or can he catch you, and what was going on in your mind? But before that, you were first in HOKA Canyons by UTMB 100K, and you got that time also a golden ticket for Western States. And then we're also gonna mention, because I'm a European, we're gonna mention also CCC in Chamonix, where you placed 15th, and you wrote amazing blog about CCC. I was really enjoying reading your blog, and actually, you're a really good writer. I encourage everyone who is listening to this podcast, they should go. I'm gonna put the link from your blog in the description. They can go and read it because you write really. There's so much knowledge and so much emotions there. I think everybody should read it. It's better than a lot of podcasts. Really good. Like maybe you should become a writer. Did you ever think about that?
Once upon a time, I did. Yeah.
Ah, okay, so you see, that's
Yep.
then now I know
Mhm.
where it's coming. Because when I try to write something, it just doesn't go. So I know this is a skill, and that it has head and toe and everything. And you're a great storyteller. This year in August, you also sign up with HOKA. Tell us more about that. Were you really looking forward to get such a big sponsor, actually becoming a pro runner now? Um, Tell us your feelings, and if it is, if you're living your dream right now.
Mhm. Yes, I would say it's even kind of beyond a dream. Growing up, I always ran, but being a pro runner was never on the radar. Like a lot of people dream of, one day being able to do it as a full profession and wanting to work towards that, or maybe not even work towards that, but just like kind of daydreaming about whether it's being a runner or like a basketball player or something, like the lifestyle and the grandeur of it is always pretty captivating. And I guess I never really allowed myself to dream that hard or that far. I think growing up, and in the social environments I was in, it was much more realistic, but also much more, I guess, prestigious to just get a good, like 9 to 5 day job, office job, like where you're, moving up the corporate ladder and working in finance or working as an engineer or something like that. Like that was almost like the pinnacle of a dream, and making a ton of money and having a great house with a family that you could support. So I think the idea of being a professional athlete, um, there weren't a lot of people in my community doing that kind of thing, and it didn't really seem like my path at all, or even a path I could follow. So yeah, to even just step back and think that I am a professional runner for HOKA now is is insane. Honestly, it's ridiculous to think about, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And I need to like stop and remind myself that often. The other day, I was just running on a trail, and I was running up a mountain here in the Eastern Sierra. It was kind of a trail that a lot of people do, but it's a big journey for a lot of people. They come from the city to go climb this peak, and I was just running up and down it. And someone, I think from India, came in. He was out hiking this trail with like a big group, and he just stops and goes, "Are you a professional athlete?" And I had to like stop and think about it for a second, and I was like, "Yeah, I am actually." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, I need to often like remind myself that, and with that comes a lot as well. It comes with a lot of expectation. It comes with a lot of sacrifice. So, when I need to make a decision, I think I deserve to prioritize this side of my life when I'm making decisions day to day, even saying yes and saying no to things. I need to remember that I am a professional athlete and I need to live it in every way.
Does now when you have a contract with HOKA, do they tell you on which races you have to go, or you have free hands?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, you're totally free to do whatever you want. They incentivize certain races, podiums at certain races. So, you know, uh, it totally depends on how professional you want to take it, right? Like if you want this to be your career and you want to be a professional runner, you need to make more money off of this. And the way you do that is to go to the races that they incentivize. But absolutely, is there no pressure? No one's gonna like cut your contract if you don't do those races.
Is it like when you were second on Western States or in these big races? Do you also get some prize money or no?
Yeah, so I wasn't with Hoka during Western States, so I was um I was with North
Still
Face
free.
at the time. Yeah,
Uh,
and yeah, but I was on a contract that didn't have incentives or race bonuses. So for me, I didn't get any sort of bonus. I was with Buff as well as an additional sponsor, and they had a pretty generous bonus, luckily. So I got something out of it, but uh, Western States, like I think when people go after that race, they're not necessarily thinking about a bonus. It's about what that race does for your career. And case in point with me right now, like if go run that race unattached, you will have all the opportunity in the world if you go and podium there. Especially every year, it's just getting more and more competitive, and more eyes are on it. I think ultimately it's about viewership, and I think there's 500,000 viewers at the high watching the live stream on YouTube. And if you're wearing a brand's jersey when there's 500,000 eyes on you, that's incredibly valuable for the brand. So
Yeah,
yeah,
100%. I actually never thought
yeah.
that actually brands give some like prize money for different tournaments. I was always thought that like the Western State
Mm.
organizers or UTMB gives you money, but actually they're actually the brands. I never thought about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. The brands incentivize it. Some race organizations do pay. UTMB has prize money as a race organization. Western States is a nonprofit, which ultimately keeps it, uh, way more in line with the community, and embodies a lot of the values that ultimately like inspire people to go to ultra trail running. So the point there isn't really revenue. The point there isn't to necessarily need a purse to get pros to go. Pros will come to that race regardless, again, because it's what it does for your career. It's what it does for your memories also. Like that is the most special environment that really keeps you uh, really keeps you connected with the community of ultra running. So I think like everyone in their life needs to run Western States at some point, and uh, I will spend if the race like charged me a few $1,000s to get into that race, like I would easily pay that to go do it without any expectation in return. So yeah.
Why do you think they made such a good reputation? Is it because of the people on the road? Is it because of the friendly people on the aid station? It's why? Why Western states? Why not some other race in state in America?
hmm Yeah, all the above. I mean, it is the oldest 100 miler, so there's history behind that. It's about to be 51 years old this upcoming year. Um, People are attracted to that history. There's a lot of meaning behind the trail in general in terms of just the development of California and the gold rush. Like it used to be a big mining trail. It's a very aesthetic point to point. So it really has all the like trail elements going for it. And then like slowly and slowly, I don't know really the origin of when it became uh, more that like championship type style where every pro wants to go run that race, but that is what it is now. And the way that it's gotten so hard to get into and it's required so much blood, sweat, and tears to qualify in for from the golden ticket side. It's just so coveted and so prestigious. And to your point, like the community just shows up. Like I make an effort to go to Auburn ahead of time of every race, and I stay with I stay with a trail volunteer who is an absolute steward. So just seeing the work that goes into maintaining that trail and the work that goes into creating this race around this trail, and how so connected all the residents and all the people of Auburn are to Western States. It's like a 365-day event for them. Like there is so much that goes on that even from the day after the race that goes into putting on the race a year later. So it's just special and everyone shows up. It's easy to spectate relatively to a lot of races. So, you have central city hubs nearby. So a lot of people make the trek up, and it's like, I don't know. I don't like using this analogy, but it really is like a Boston Marathon of ultra running where like people are lining the course everywhere they can. So you'll always have people cheering at you.
Yeah, and I heard
Yeah.
it's really hard to come there to race. It's really hard to qualify, or especially for Europeans, it's really everyone who is like trail runner in Europe and then
Hmm.
gets into the Western States. It's like really hard because there's like
Yeah.
300 runners only each year, if I'm right, something like this.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to come in. And I guess also because you can run Western States pretty much every day of the year. It's just not the competition.
Hmm.
So pretty much most probably because it got so famous, it brought lots of tourism also when there's not a competition because I guess lots of people want to go to run this race even
Yeah.
outside of the competition.
Yeah, that is
So
true. It's pretty accessible to just get out there. Like there's only it's snowy up in the first 30 miles of the race until about mid-June, but you could run 2/3 of the course any day of the year. So,
mm.
yeah.
And how come you never went on like Hard Rock 100 or Leadville, or did I just miss it and you actually went?
No, yeah, I haven't run them yet. Hardrock, I would totally run it. I put my name in the lottery every year.
Ah, okay.
So there will be a time where I run that race. I really hope it's a time when I feel like I'm done with Western States and I don't feel like I need to run that race that summer. But yeah, it's hard for me to think about like, let's say I got into Hard Rock from the lottery this year. I don't think I would say no to Western States, but I can't say no to the Hard Rock ticket either. So I might be trying to do both. But yeah, and the two mean entirely different things to me. Western States is about competition and it's about proving yourself as a runner and yeah, making a name in the sport and being connected to the community. Hard Rock is almost like it's more of a journey for me and just trying to complete the loop and I'm sure I'll get competitive somewhere in there, but it's more about just spending time out in the mountains.
You also told me, and you actually also wrote in your blog that you're thinking about leaving your regular job, which you still have. How difficult is to make a decision?
Extremely, extremely, and it goes back to kind of how we started this podcast. But it's always been ingrained in me from youth that you need to be working in front of a computer for your days, and that's like what success is. And you need to keep climbing the corporate ladder and get to a place where you're high up in a company. So yeah, the idea of not working. I've been working here for almost 6 years. It was my first job out of college, basically, and my my plan is never to leave. My plan is to stick it out here and watch this company grow and help this company grow and succeed. But yeah, I am just getting to a point now with running where I think I've gotten a glimpse into my potential and where I can really take this and who I could be and relative to people I'm racing right now. And I think there is a lot left on the table for me that would come from having that extra free time in my day and not having the stress in my day. Like today, I feel like I wake up probably a little bit sleep deprived from not getting a full rest the night before, immediately hop into some running clothes. Especially in the winter here in Mammoth, I'm running in some very cold temperatures that can't be necessarily good for the muscles. And then I get back to my computer, I go straight to a meeting, and before I know it, it's been a few hours since I've eaten anything or been able to hydrate properly after. And then I have a second session in the evening where, I probably just had way too much food at once in order to make up for the calorie deficit. And then my stomach's kind of messed up for the second session. And then repeat, do it again, go to bed pretty late and wake up a little sleep deprived and go for it again. And it's just, it's worked up to this point. I think it's fine, but I'm getting to the point where I need that extra 1% in order to now accomplish the goals I want to accomplish. And yeah, I'm going to sleep in more. I'm going to prioritize recovery more. I'm going to eat more and eat more regularly. I'm going to meet with professionals more, have a whole team behind me, go to a strength coach and not just a lift on my own, massage weekly, like all these things that really are the professional athlete lifestyle that I haven't had room for. And it's funny, like a lot of people are like, oh, you're gonna have so much more free time now that you're quitting your job, right? It's like, no, I'm gonna say no to so many more things now because I'm making the conscious decision to sacrifice work and a salary and like really great income to go pursue this thing. I better pursue it to the fucking fullest, like I'm not leaving anything on the table. And if I do, I'm wasting this opportunity. I'm wasting the extra salary that I could have gotten from staying in my job. So I want to go just full on monk mode. Probably be much less social human being, but yeah, it's going to be it. I really hope I'm going to see some return from it. And if I don't, that's fine. I'll go back to work in a year and a half or 2 years or something like that. But yeah, I just need to know that I've tried everything.
Yeah, because if you want to do extraordinary things, you have to be extraordinary. So,
Hmm.
yeah. What do you do for your 9 to 5 job?
Yeah, I work in a health tech company. So I work on the sales side and on the growth team. I work on like our technical deals and help support to bring them over the line. So
Oh, cool. And also
yeah,
when you're gonna go like 100% in the running, you're also gonna have much more time and more freedom to travel.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
you, you can come more
Yep.
often to Europe.
Come more often to Europe, spend more time in Europe. I mean, right now it's like I can get a week off work at any point, and so I can only be there a week before a race. And I'm sure we'll kind of get into this, but I feel like that really hurt me at CCC. Like I needed some more time to adapt to the weather and get on a good sleep schedule, figure out my stomach, all these things, and um, ultimately, like that's what I'm going to do next year. Like right after Western States, I'm going to go straight to France a week later and stay there for 2 months before the race. So
Oh, nice, nice.
yeah,
Okay, take us to your preparation this year for Western States. You ran like 1 hour and 45 minutes faster than the year before. What did you change?
hmm all biggest thing, just my racing strategy. I mean, there's a lot like in between that we'll dive into, but I just knew what I wanted to do at this race this year. Like last year, it was like, okay, you just So that was my fourth time running. The first two times I ran, I blew up. And I wasn't even like racing that hard. I just blew up probably for nutrition reasons and being undertrained in the heat. But the third year, I played it very conservatively. Granted, it was a cool year. And I was in like the 20th to 25th position all day. And then finally in the last stretch to the river, I turned it on full gas to the finish and was able to finish 11th. And that was great. Like I needed that type of race under my belt to feel, confident about my ability at Western States, but it was extremely unsatisfying finishing 11th. Um, Ultimately, like when I think about what that did for my career, I think it was really great. I finished 11th because I didn't automatically qualify the next year and I had to go after a golden ticket the following year, which like really put me on the map after Canyons and gave me a lot of bidding power in my negotiations with the pro contract. So, everything happens for a reason. And I think that 11th was good for me, both mentally and from a confidence standpoint, and obviously for my career. But then coming into this race, in my head, all I wanted to do was podium. I was like, I finished 11th. That's essentially 10th place. I don't want to have that type of race again and just barely sneak in. I want to be remembered here, and I want to have that performance that everyone talks about. I want to prove to myself that I am one of the best runners in this field. And for me, that kind of felt like a top 5 performance. So that is where I put myself early on. If you're watching the live stream, I did lead basically to the first aid station, but it was more just because people were kind of putting the brakes on for the most part. And I was like, it's actually hurting more to put the brakes on than just getting in front and leading through the high country in the single track. So yeah, I was leading there. Found myself in a pack with Hayden Hawks and Dan Jones. Jim Walmsley kind of ran away with it for a little bit, but I found myself in that top 5 and I was pretty satisfied with like, okay, if we can hold this, we're pulling away from the field, this would be awesome. And then at some point in the canyons, I, was getting a sense of the other competitors around me, like Hayden and Dan, and I was running a little bit less labored for them. I think I don't know. Everyone has their low in the race, and I feel like their low was there where mine came a little bit later. And I just kind of took advantage of it and came up out of the canyons in second place. Thought Jim was way in front. Had no idea he was sitting at Michigan Bluff for a little bit, and I left Michigan Bluff just doing a normal 8 station swap that I was doing, and I was in first. And from there, like the mentality shift to like, let's go win this race. So, yeah, I did everything I wanted to do that day, and it left me where I was. I don't know. You always like think back on the day and you're like, I wish I won. Like, I wish I did something a little bit differently there, but I cannot complain. Like I executed exactly how I wanted to execute, and it just happened that, I had my low at the end and Jim had this second wind at the end that was pretty crazy. So, yeah, so to answer your question, the big thing that changed for me was just, I think my mentality around what I can do at this race and how I executed from literally when the gun went off. So,
Do you think it's possible to go under 14 hours?
absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think it's like the time that would be like really out of this planet for Western states?
Yeah, I think 8 minute pace average is it's I don't see like why it can't happen. And let's do the math on that real quick.
It's exactly 100 miles, right? So it's
Yep,
actually
800
800 minutes,
minutes. Yeah, that's like 1320. So,
1320.
yeah, I mean,
Well,
granted, you have to kind of count in aid station stops. I'm going to say average running pace is 8 minute pace, but including aid stations, let's
of
say
course.
let's say 1330 to 1340. Like I think that's an absolutely reasonable time that is within this next decade or maybe even next 5 years that will come. So,
You also wrote in your blog that now it's not anymore that the race is decided in Forest Hill, but they actually start deciding at the first aid station.
mhm.
Why? Because it got so competitive, because the trail running became so popular, and
Mhm.
there's more and more great trail runners, or is some other reason?
Yeah, yeah, partially. You know, what does great mean though? You know, it's great in the context of Western states. So you could have the best trail runner in the world who has never run Western states, and shit can still happen to them, you know? And I think like I think when I say the race starts at the first aid station, the race starts when the gun goes off, not at Forest Hill. It just means that people are learning how to race Western states and learning how to control their effort and strategically be able to hold on to these moves that they make. And I don't think if you gave me the best trail runner in the world who has never run Western states, I still and like they're objectively better than Jim, for example. Jim is still going to beat them at Western states because he is so experienced on this trail. You look at like the top 10 of Western states now. Probably everyone is going to come back again, and it's probably been their like last few times they've come back. They're coming back with a whole another year of experience, a whole another time racing, a whole another time blowing up and like figuring out how to mitigate that blow up. That now it's like it's now becoming a science how to run this race for those people. So I don't think people blow up that much anymore at Western States after their third or fourth try it's like, okay, now I know how to mitigate what happened in that moment. And now once I mitigate that, I'm going to run 14 hours, and it's scary to think about, like when I like am starting to think about the prep for Western States next year, it's like I need to be so on it from the first step. And if I want that same thing to happen again, I still need to do so much differently next year in order to get that same result. Because now there's going to be all these people who learned from last year coming back and saw what is possible, seeing what I did, seeing what Jim did, and doing some variation of that, probably even better than we did. And now, like, I'm not fitter than anyone. I'm not coming into that race fitter than anyone. I'm probably coming in even less fit just from like just my ceiling standpoint than someone like Hayden, for example, who is like a 13-minute 5K guy. So like as soon as Hayden or as soon as uh, Dan or someone like that figures out what went wrong from them in that moment, now they're pushing the field to that 13:40 time, and it's like now can I mitigate my blowups in order to go with them? So yeah, to really think about the potential of Western states, it's kind of crazy to think about from a racing perspective because so many people do it over and over again, and so many elites do it over and over again. And there's so much more information out there now on how to race the race, and so much more science around physiology and what's going wrong. The key thing is like people are still gonna make mistakes. Some people won't, but the only way like you're gonna get away from other people is by making less mistakes than them. So yeah.
I really like because you said it's a science. And as a beginner, I always thought it's just running. You put shoes on and you go to run. So what can happen? But then very soon I realized that I was like 100% wrong. It's important which shoes you put on. It's actually important which socks you put on. It's important what clothes you put on, what water intake you have, what salt intake,
Hmm.
sodium intake you have, what calories per hour. If it's hot, it's this. If it's gonna be cold, it's totally different. It is science. It
Yeah.
is definitely science. And when I was talking for the first time with Hayden, actually it came to me, whoa, it's a science. When he was the first that he told me that in Western states he ate 98 grams of carbs per hour, and in UTMB he ate, I think he said 118. So it was
Wow.
from he didn't say 90, he didn't say 120, he said
Yeah. Yeah.
98 and 116 or 100. I was like, whoa. So it was 116, so not 118. It was
Hmm.
to me, whoa, it's crazy. And Tell me about how different it is when you go to Western states or when you go to Chamonix.
Hmm.
Like, is it different how much water you're gonna drink? Is it different how much salt you're gonna intake? Is it different how much calories per hour? How it is for you? The difference,
Hmm.
because let's say that Western states are in states like the most famous next to Hardrock and Leadville, I don't know if I pronounce it right, and in Europe or actually in the world is UTMB.
Yeah. Yeah, it is different. And ultimately it comes down to conditions and your effort. And, I think the perception is you go to UTMB, you're in the mountains. It's quite different. It's going to be less hot. But the mountains there are extremely different than the mountains here in the US. They're humid mountains, they're wet mountains, where here it's very dry. So you need to be testing yourself, I think, and that's where I went wrong. I did a lot of testing before Western States to figure out how much I was sweating, and I ultimately came to this number that I was easily able to replace during the race. Um, when you go to Chamonix, it's coming from the US and going there, you have less time to kind of do those things and understand the weather and do these different metabolic tests and sweat tests. So I think having experienced that, that's going to be like a big thing for me going forward is just getting there a little bit earlier so I have the time to do that and understand it a little bit better. But it just in general, I think I was absolutely losing more water at CCC than I was at Western States, which was uh, really scary to think about because I was definitely drinking way less, just being like, okay, I'm not running necessarily as hard. I'm not, it's not 90, it's not almost 100 degrees here, so I shouldn't need to be drinking quite as much, but it was absolutely a mistake expecting that. And the humidity there is quite extreme. So it can be hit or miss. Like I think I've gone to UTMB a couple years or 1 year before that, and it wasn't quite as humid. This year is extremely humid, and CCC is uh, in the daytime the whole time, so you have less time to hide at night and stuff like that to get to it. Something also a lot more difficult. Western States is a very easily crewed race, so first of all, you have pacers with you for a bit of it, and when you do see your crew, it's pretty frequently. So you can carry less on you and expect to get to your crew and then just swap everything. So it's less of an ordeal to have to carry everything to replace like your fluids and your nutrition. It's much more harder to do that CCC, especially and UTMB, especially because you have a full pack on as well, which like takes up all the space. So it's like already a heavy pack. Do I really want to put 20 gels in this pack to get me through to the next aid station? That's an extra 5 pounds on me, and you feel it. Um, so there, God, there is a lot to think about when you are trying to execute these races perfectly. And I feel like after 4 years, I have figured out how to think about Western states and how to think about getting all my intake needs. But I have not figured that out yet at UTMB. I think I need some time there and I need to figure out how long it takes me to get to every aid station. I think I need to figure out how much I might lose at night intake wise versus how much I lose in the day. Um, I need to think about like how hard I'm going from an effort standpoint and how heavy I want to be on some climbs. Like maybe it is still beneficial to take less nutrition on you if it means being a little bit less heavy on these climbs in between aid stations. And it sounds complicated, but all it takes is a simple test to figure out like your energy needs on these things. So I and going out a week prior does not give you enough time to do all that. So yeah, I big takeaway is if you want to do your very best at these races, you need to approach them and think about them very seriously and go to these places and spend time out there. I know it's not in the cards for everyone. It wasn't in the cards for me, and like that's why that's a big reason I'm choosing to quit my job too. It's just to be able to have more time to do these things, to execute these races well. So
Yeah, so you created
yeah,
that life for yourself, so nobody gave it to
yeah.
you. You work hard for it. Just that you go, the last thing for Western states, how long or when can the pacers come to you, and how many pacers can you have? Can you have them from the start, or how are the rules?
hmm you can have one pacer with you starting at Forest Hill, which is mile 60. So there's basically three spots where you could swap pacers. One is at Forest Hill when you can start taking one. Next one is at or actually four spots. Next one is at the Rucky Chucky River, which is mile 78. So you cross that river, pretty iconic. You can swap your pacer there, or you could take that pacer all the way up to the Green Gate, which is just the climb right after the river. So another 2 miles up. You could take a pacer there, and then you could take a pacer at mile 94, which is Pointed Rocks. And you could take them to the finish. And then the last mile you can run with as many people as you want through on the streets to the track. Yeah.
And what would be your perfect amount of pacers? Do you use all four different, or you have one all the time? What's your
I like
perfect scenario?
yeah, I in the past I've done two. So I've always swapped at the river. I think two is good. I think I would like my first pacer longer though. So it would have been nice if there's somewhere else from the river to the finish to pick up your pacer that's a little bit closer than Puerto Rocks. But um, from a logistics standpoint and from like finding your pacer, it's much easier to do the swap at the river. So that's kind of like I think where I'll swap moving forward, continuing to do that. So
So when you go to run UTMB, you miss pacers, or you're actually happy that you're alone? I mean, you're not alone, you're together with other runners, but would you like to have, for example, running UTMB and have a pacer next to it?
I would, yeah, I think it
Yeah.
helps me a ton. Yeah, it just
Do 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 you guys
yeah.
talk with yourself? Why do you think that in Europe there's no pacers and in States there are? It's just because in Western states there's like 200 to 300 people running, and UTMB has, I don't know, 2,500. Most probably that's the reason, right?
Yeah, that's got to be the reason, I think, right? Like if everyone had a pacer, it'd be 5,000 people on the trail. It'd be kind
So,
of nuts. But
yeah, okay.
yeah, I don't know. The ethic is also just different, I think. And I respect the European ethic also of just like go grind this out on your own. Like that's why you guys are out here. So, yeah, I get it. It's totally fine.
Okay. So let's
Yeah.
go now to CCC this
Yeah.
year, 2024.
hmm
First, from the start to, so for Courmayeur to Arnois, you said that your carb loading is 12 grams of carbs per kilo of body weight for last 2 days. What's your body weight in kilograms?
61 kilos.
61. How tall are you?
I am 5'7", 5'7". Yeah.
Do you know in centimeters? You don't know.
Let's see.
Let's check it, please.
Yeah. One 170
170. Okay.
centimeters. Yeah.
So 12 grams per kilo, that means you ate 730 grams of carbs that day, last two
hmm
days. It's like each day
hmm
730 grams. What do you eat for carbs?
hmm
How do you do it?
Yeah, it's actually a lot of drink mix throughout the day. So it's just the easiest way to supplement and get it in, especially when you're super full. I do eat like a lot of real food, a lot of rice and pasta, potatoes. Those are like kind of the three solid foods I'm eating, and bread. And then in between, it's just drink mix all day, most just to hydrate, first of all, and get the electrolytes in also. But yeah, good to just boost up the carbs.
I read in your blog that you said that you were totally full on the start,
hmm
and then actually you start with 5,000 feet of climb with all the all the gear you have to take with you.
Yeah.
You said that that was most probably the biggest mistake because you saw that Hayden was chatting and making jokes the entire way up and that you were suffering. So
Yeah.
next year, would you make this different next time? Talking
Uh,
for CCC, so for 100K.
right. So next year I'm gonna run UTMB. Um,
I thought
so
so,
but
yes.
but if I was doing CCC, I would do it a little bit differently. Yeah. Um, there's a few things I would do differently. First, I would probably eat less in the morning of CCC. I think like carb loading for 2 days, the morning, or yeah, carb loading for 2 days prior. I probably don't need to eat much in the morning at all, but I was kind of continuing to just kind of stuff myself because 9 a.m. it's not too late of a start. So we're getting up at, like 5:30. I have 3 hours. I'm like, okay, let's just try to still intake as much as I can up to that point. I probably wouldn't do that again. Maybe just try to mostly just sip water for the most part. Um, so that's kind of the number one thing I'd do. I still think carb loading is important. I still think hitting that 11 to 12 grams per kilo body weight is important for you to have your glycogen fully stocked up by the time you start your race. So I wouldn't necessarily change that the 2 days prior, um, just kind of the morning of. And then
And
I
what do
did it.
what do you eat?
Yeah,
What do you eat for breakfast? Like before the race, what did you eat?
yeah, I was doing just mostly drink the whole time.
I
Up to
also
like
drink.
drink mix. Yeah. I probably had a piece of bread in the morning, but bread and banana, and then yeah, ton of drink mix. I try to stay away from caffeine, just kind of upsets my stomach. So I know a lot of people are coffee drinkers in the morning. I am typically, but yeah, for race days I kind of stay away from that. Yeah.
And then from 16 mile to 34th mile, so from Arnois to Champelac, you wrote in your blog that you skip water fountains and that caused the later blow-ups, the
hmm
cramping and everything. So what was the reason that you skipped them? Did you just want to be as fast as possible or?
hmm Yeah, I had a plan in my head, and in that plan didn't have the water fountains. So I was like, why do I need to stop for that? And I was, passing like five people at once who were just up at that water fountain. So it was like, okay, let's just use this to my advantage and let's pick up some places here. I feel okay, so let's just like run through them, and I'll just get to the next aid station as planned. Um, but yeah, ultimately, like I was sweating way more than I knew, and I needed much more than I had in my plan in between aid stations. It also did take slightly longer to get in between aid stations than I had planned. Um, Again, a big advantage of having course knowledge and getting there early is like you'll know how long it's going to take you to get to these different stretches. Another important thing about water and hydrating and like making sure that you are on top of that is just your ability to absorb the carbs that you're taking in. So, maybe I was taking in those 100 grams of carbs an hour, but they were just getting stuck in my stomach because my overall like uh water concentration in my blood was lower than what I anticipated because I was sweating so much more. So there's a lot of downstream effects of that too. You will gastric empty way slower, meaning the carbs will go into your stomach and get sent into your small intestine and then sent to your muscle, like the energy sent to your muscles way slower. And if you are like constantly taking in your gels, all that's going to back up and now it's just sitting in your stomach and you're going to throw up and not actually like use the energy from that.
Oh yeah, that is like,
Yeah.
let's talk about science.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
trail running, ultra running is really a science. Then you went from Champelac to Chamonix, so the last section. You said that you came in the zombie mode, that you only took one gel per hour, so 30
hmm
grams of carbs instead of every 20 minutes. Bring us into this moment, into this, let's say, last 25, 27 miles. How did you feel? What is going on in your head? Are you already that time sorry that you didn't drink or that you made these mistakes? Or do you say to yourself, how next year or next time when I'm gonna go run CCC, I'm gonna change this. Is that the reason why you write the blog? That you remember what was wrong? Tell us a bit about that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's ultimately the reason. I think, yeah, if you go back to my first blog from this year, that was the initial impetus behind it. It just so happened that I had success in between for the next few blogs that I had more fun stories to write about rather than like blow up stories. But if we really think about it, like I want to remember what I did incorrectly. So I have a log of this. It's essentially a personal journal. And I can look back at this. I can look back when I prepare for UTMB next year and remember what I did incorrectly and make sure I just don't do that again and make sure my plan accommodates for that mistake I made. So it's good to have these bad experiences. Like that's how you learn truly, and that's how you ultimately become a better runner. It'd be great if every race it turned out well and you didn't have to learn, but you're going to have these learning opportunities and it's up to you to make them an opportunity rather than be upset about them and just go back out and expect to get the same a different result by doing the same thing. So it sucked in the moment, absolutely. I felt like I learned nothing, from this whole year of racing, and that was a bad feeling. And I felt like maybe a little bit arrogant coming into the race after doing well at Canyons in Western. And I was like, oh, I'll just, get out a week early. And I had a bunch of media stuff going on with HOKA that week too, as we did our announcement. So, there's partly the pressure from that, but also partly like, there's a lot of ego boost all week telling you like, oh, this guy is so great, this guy is so good, and we're lucky to have him on our team. So, you come into the race with that ego a little bit, and you're like, I can totally beat everyone here, and ultimately you make a mistake, and I made a ton of mistakes in that race, and that's what really blew up my day. So yeah, it's a good kick in the butt, and it's a good reminder that like you're not guaranteed anything, and you need to really give these races the full attention they deserve, especially in these very competitive fields.
So it's good that each time when we step on the start that we are super humble and confident, but
Yeah,
super humble. Okay.
confident
Yeah,
and humble. Yeah.
I believe if I would be in your shoes, yeah, of course, where you go there, sign the contract with HOKA, have such a great season. It's like it's not hard that it comes into your head.
Yeah.
Everybody could get a bit of ego, and yeah, then the mountains they put you
Yeah.
back down. Yeah,
Yeah. I love it,
that's
honestly. Yeah. Remind you who you
that's
are.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
but did you puke? You didn't puke, right?
Surprisingly, no. I puked a lot after the race, but not during.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
After you came in the goal through
Hmm.
the okay, interesting.
All night when I got to the hotel room, all night.
So next year you said you're gonna go to UTMB.
Hmm.
So your plan is, I guess that you're gonna come what 1 2 months or these 2 months before to Chamonix. You're gonna
Yeah.
most probably run around Mont Blanc, different parts. I really love that you did for Western States, and I guess not only for Western States, that you in the morning before you go to a run, you totally naked weigh yourself. After you come from the run, you weigh yourself again, that you see exactly how much water you're gonna lose. You made also the water, how you say, the sweat test, right?
Yep. Yep.
This I guess this you're gonna also do in Chamonix next year, that you're gonna be more prepared. But how do you know how much salt is actually in this water? How do
Yeah,
you know
it's a
how
good
much salt
question.
you have to take?
Yeah. So yeah, the test won't tell you that. You have to get either you get a device or you go to a lab and they'll actually tell you your sodium concentration in your sweat. That's a genetic number that mostly genetic that does not change. So now that you have that number, that's going to be like your constant. For me, that constant is just 1200 milligrams of sodium per liter of sweat I lose. So if now that's half of the equation, right? 1200 milligrams of sodium. Now I need to figure out how many liters I'm actually losing. So that's where the sweat rate test comes in, where you weigh yourself before and after a run. you'll figure out the difference in your body weight. That's all water concentration that you're losing. You're not going to like lose body fat weight from a run. So now that you have that number, you know how many liters you lost based on that weight, and then you know how much sodium you're losing based on that concentration. So for simplicity, let's say I lost 1 liter of water on that run. I know my concentration of my sodium or of my sweat is 1200 milligrams of sodium per liter. I know I just lost 1200 milligrams of sodium. So now I know I should take roughly 1200 milligrams of sodium an hour. So
And how do you replenish it? With salty pills or with gels, or with
all
which
the above.
form?
Yeah, so
Both.
drink mix, salt pills, and you have sodium in your gels too. So yeah.
How important are for you aid station transitions? Because we see now in the elite runners at the end, there's like few minutes difference.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking as a beginner, as an amateur, as a like that when I come to the aid station, it's relaxed. I have time. It's fun. But I guess for you
Yeah,
it's a bit more stressful.
yeah, yeah. It's stressful when you're on your own, I'd say. But when you have your crew, like at Western States, for example, all I did was put my arms up. My crew would take my vest off, put a new one on, dump water on me, and my only goal was to go. My goal wasn't to eat anything there or like replenish. You can do that all while you're running. So as long as you're staying on top of your fueling while you're running, you shouldn't need to do anything at the aid stations necessarily other than swap out your pack, which should already have your nutrition in it. So it's really easy at a race like Western States. At a race like UTMB, it is a bit more stressful because it's like you get into that aid station, you probably get in with someone you've been battling with for a while, and you see them run out, and you're like, God, what do I have to do right now? Do I go follow him, or do I take my time and make sure I fill up my bottles? Um, I will say too, and no disrespect or anything, the aid stations at European races, in my experience, are a little bit like more chaotic than in the States, where like I feel like you go in the States, the volunteers know exactly what you need and they just do everything for you. At UTMB, especially as like a foreigner, who maybe the volunteers don't speak English, it's harder to figure out what you are supposed to do, and you need to fill your own bottles, and it takes just a little bit more time and a little bit more patience. But you got to remember the nature of the race too. It's like no one, it you know, the climbs and the descents make for it easier, I think, to catch back up to people than a race like States where people are just kind of gunning it and there's like less opportunity to make up time. But you'll catch back up to that guy, and I need to like remind myself that personally. Um, I God, again, I've never had a good experience in Chamonix, so every time I do get to an aid station with my crew, I'm always sitting for a little bit, and I really want to get away from that. Like my big goal is just to feel good in the back half and be able to compete in the back, 50K when you start hitting those 3 climbs from Champéloc. I just want to be able to compete there, and um, every time I've gotten there recently, I've it's just been survival mode and just trying to get up and go to the next aid station and sit for a little bit. So yeah, I need to take care of myself getting there, and like while I think the race starts at the very beginning at Western States, I don't think UTMB is quite there yet, and I think UTMB still requires a lot of patience, and you need to be feeling good at the very end there in order. And I don't know where the race starts. I haven't done it enough to really be able to say the knowledge or have the knowledge to say where the race starts there, but I think it still is kind of around that Champéloc point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in somewhere in the middle. What nutrition do you use? How much carbs per hour? How much water? How much, okay, salt? Actually, how much, because you know how much you sweat per hour, and from which company you use. or it's mixed?
I use NEVERSECOND for my nutrition. I am affiliated with them. I love their products. I used them way before I started getting affiliated with them. I think the gels, like I they're a little bit more watery and liquidy, which helps with the gastric emptying. So I feel like I feel the energy from them a little bit quicker. Um, and I try to aim for 100 grams of carbs an hour. That is typically two gels for 60 grams of carbs, and then 40 grams of carbs through a drink mix. I try to put that drink mix solution just in one bottle, but I try to drink 3 bottles an hour for the most part, around 1,500 milliliters of fluid an hour. And the other two are just plain water. What that does, again, is just help with the gastric emptying if I just have more like water concentration for all the carbs that I'm putting in me. And ultimately, it helps with stomach issues and just, getting the carbs out of your stomach into your small intestine and out to your muscles quicker. So,
But how do you do it when your vest has like for 2 flasks? Where do you
mhm.
carry the third flask?
Yeah, either in a belt or if I have room in my vest in the back, I'll put another one. So,
Uh-huh. Okay.
yeah, it's annoying for sure, but it's better than bonking. So,
Which shoes do you use for Western States and which one for CCC this year? Because there's a bit different terrain, like a lot of different terrain. Did you use the same shoes or different?
I was with North Face prior. The day of Western States, I was with the
Uh,
North Face, and I was running in the Vectiv Pro 2, Summit Pro 2. I thought it was a great shoe for Western States. Yeah, I would pick up a pair of them. Um, Responsive foam, great carbon plate in it to keep it stiff. So great. Yeah, I had no issues with that. The day after Western States, my contract with North Face ended. I had a great relationship with them. I think just things, getting second at Western States opens the door for a lot of brands to chat with you. So I went through the doors and I talked to a lot of different brands, and I just felt like HOKA met me with where I was at the time. Now, so yeah, so I ended up going with HOKA. I ran in the Tecton X 2.5 for CCC. Um, it is a extremely fast shoe. Like it is, the foam is extremely responsive. Um, Almost like too responsive in a way for those technical trails. I will say, don't go unbox a pair of Tecton X3s or something and then go try to race CCC or on the mountains. You need to practice with those shoes, probably a month of practice with them before you really get the hang of them descending, because they are like very fast and they are harder to just get the hang of after going from a normal shoe. So just give yourself some time to practice, but once you figure it out, it is an awesome shoe.
the Tecton X3.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, we the elites had a pair of 2.5, which is essentially the three, just a little bit more stripped down.
Ah,
They're
okay.
slightly less durable because they're just like stripped down and have less stuff on them. So the commercial version is the three, but it's essentially the exact same shoe. The three just last
Yeah.
longer, a little more
I just
durable.
ran
Yeah,
today the second or the third time in Tecton X3 and
yeah,
it's really you can see the difference. There's such a huge difference between shoes that's
yeah,
amazing. It's
yeah.
it's in one way they're so soft the
Hmm.
around the ankles and everything, and ran when you run for like 50 or more K when your ankles get swollen, Tectonics is perfect because nothing bothers you. So that's
Hmm.
great. Also the carbon plate is great. I love
Hmm.
I know everybody. Okay, I almost have 100 kilos, so I'm not the fast runner. I'm, let's say, somewhere in the middle. Um, so carbon plate is not for me. I use carbon plate pretty much when I step on the rocks. I don't like
Yeah,
to feel the rocks, and
yeah.
when you have carbon plate, it's great because it's just great. I love the shoes.
Hmm.
It's my number one shoes right now. And
Yeah.
before I used Tecton X2, which are
Okay.
also amazing. But X3,
Yeah.
It's
The
something
X
different.
the X2 are a little more stiff, right? And then the
Yes,
X3 are a
yes,
little more soft and they
yes.
flex a little bit. It's kind of like uh, my preference would probably be a little bit stiffer on the three, just to handle the turns a little bit better. Right now, it's kind of like it's so soft and so fast on the like straightaways, but then I think like when you're going around a turn, sometimes your ankle could just lose it because of the softness. But uh, I would still pick up the shoe any day to use them over
Yeah,
anything.
it's
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
Which race is your favorite? Watch what you'll say.
Hey, it's Western States, definitely.
It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Not hard rock. Ah, you didn't run yet.
I haven't run yet. Yep, maybe it'll
Yeah.
change, but at least right now in my career, it's Western. I mean, has it has been my North Star since I started running ultras in 2018, and it got me really excited about the sport. It's changed my whole career. You know, it's made me realize um, it all these like different gaps myself as a human, even, and like where I can where I can improve, both personally and like as an athlete. So yeah, I love the race so much. I love the community around it, and yeah, there's nothing that like I love the prep for it too. I love like how dialed you get in for every little piece of it. And granted, like I should have that kind of mentality for other races too, and get just as granular and dialed, but it's been easier to do it for Western for me, and it's been fun to do it. So
Which race is the hardest?
that I've done, um, UTMB, honestly. I don't know. It's different hard, but I think, yeah, God, after having like a good race and a good experience at Western, it's hard to say that's like a harder race, but especially because I haven't done UTMB well. UTMB just breaks me at some point in the race, and uh, it's just yeah, it getting through those last three climbs can be such a grind that takes so long. It's like endless. So for me, I think UTMB has been the hardest.
Do you know how many miles per year you ran?
Uh, yeah, this is actually I think going to be the most I've ever run once this year ends, but it'll be 4,000 miles.
4,000 miles.
Yeah,
That's in
yeah.
kilometers, like 6,000 kilometers. Even a bit more than 6,000 kilometers, a lot. And
Hmm.
how much altitude?
Mm, probably close. I would guess close to uh 300,000 meters, probably.
300,000. That's a
Yeah,
lot. That's nice.
yeah,
And you still
yeah.
go to your regular job. What is gonna happen when
Yeah.
you have even more time?
Right. Hopefully not too much more. That's not the intention, but it's gonna open up opportunity to train differently. Like um I think right now with how work is structured, it's all about the weekends, right? It's all about going hard on the weekends because that's when you have the most time. Um and I think me and my coach are kind of try to change things up instead of like thinking about training as like a week and like weekly mileage and weekly uh, adaptations. We're going to think about it as like 3 day blocks. So it's less about what you do in a full week, like Monday to Sunday, just because that's what shows on Strava. It's more about like, what can we do in this 3 day block and then take rest and then do another 3 day block and just try to like squeeze in more. Like it almost opens the door for two times the adaptation in a week if you were to think about it in that way.
That means
Yeah.
3 days training, then 1 day off, and then 3 days training. Like this.
Yeah, off or just like, super easy, but go like really hard for those 3 days. And um it would probably be like and we haven't really decided it yet, but just spitballing, it's like two high intensity like VO2 type workouts with like a really long day in between. So
will you still race this year any race, or did your season end already?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to squeeze out one more. I'm gonna go to Mallorca by UTMB on November
Okay,
1st. Uh,
nice, nice.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, my intention there is you might have heard, but I wanted to run the Diagonal des Fous on Grand Raid, but I just my body wasn't really feeling up for that big of an effort after CCC. Um, but I still I want to do well internationally. I want to do well in these island style races that are very humid, and I historically just haven't been able to figure it out. So I just want to go to this race and have a good experience, get a lot of learnings from it, implement some things that I hope to implement at larger races. But it's a 70K. A lot of climbing. It has about 4,500 meters of climbing in the 70K. So it does emulate the style of a lot of those big island races like Diagonal des Fous and Trans Gran Canaria and Transvolcania. So yeah, I just want a lower pressure setting and just go to a cool place to travel before the end of the season. So
Did you ever think about moving to Europe, or you would never move to Europe?
I haven't thought about it until now, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. But no,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think as long as Western states is on my radar, I want to be as dialed as I can here
I
in the
mean,
US. Yeah.
you can also, if you live in Europe, you can still fly to Western states, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
We would let
Yeah.
you, to go to
Okay.
run it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you,
Maybe if I'm still struggling at UTMB after this summer, I think I'm gonna have a part of my brain that is like, okay, I need to pull a full Jim Walmsley and go live there for a couple of years.
is there any other race in Europe that you would like to run it?
Mm,
Did you heard about Lavaredo?
yeah. Yeah.
That's another,
Yeah.
that's exactly, let's say the second, if, let's say if UTMB is um, Tour de France, then
Hmm.
Lavaredo is Giro d'Italia,
Okay.
something like
Okay.
this. I don't know if you watch cycling, then
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I do. I want a full resume, I want to approach the sport and be able to tackle all these different races. And I think right now I'm very hyper focused on Western States UTMB. I think, I hope to have 10 more years of running in me, and I hope at some point I'm going to want to change it up and not run Western and UTMB every year. And yeah, it's going after those races. I do want to do Madeira. I want to do Transvolcania, Trans Gran Canaria. So yeah, those island races really excite me, and it'd be cool to dedicate a season to just doing that kind of thing, and then culminating with the Grand Raid. I think ultimately, that would be the path to best figure out Diagonal des Fous, and yeah, I, I anticipate that for myself at some point. So
when we go a bit back to day-to-day life, do you have any cheat meals?
no meal is a cheat meal. Every meal has its nutritional value. So that's what I'll say to that. I mean,
It's
what
true,
do you,
but
yeah. What do you consider a cheat meal, I guess?
like when you would go eat, I don't know, hamburgers or chocolate, ice cream, cookies, things like this,
Yeah, I
like
eat that
processed
all the
food.
time.
You eat that
Yeah,
all the time. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
No,
that's
no,
good.
no restrictions there. If I'm craving it, and um, your body. There's a great line from this book called Once a Runner that I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was kind of a Bible for us growing up in high school, and a lot of I think U.S. Runners would resonate with that. But there's a great line, and it said, "If the furnace is hot enough, it will burn anything." So as long as you're training
Uh,
hard enough, you could put anything in.
how did you say once a runner? It's the title.
Yep, Yeah, by
Okay,
John L. Parker. Yeah.
I'm gonna go get it myself. Okay, so for next year, you're looking forward to UTMB and Western States. Is there already some other race that is in your radar, or you don't know yet?
Just 50Ks. I'm gonna be just doing some 50Ks up until Western. Um, yeah, I think still trying to figure it out, but I might do Chuck a Nut 50K in the US. I might do Way Too Cool. I might do Canyons 50K. So I'll probably do three 50Ks earlier in the season, but the big intention is just to set myself up to be able to take on Western States and UTMB. And I think in order to do that, I need to have a pretty chill beginning of the year, but still training extremely hard and training very specific to handle that double. So we're going to be really training focused, just getting some 50Ks in to sharpen and just remember what it's like to race earlier in the season. But I have no intention to do any 100Ks or anything longer earlier in the year. I just want to save my body to be able to handle the double in the summer.
For Western States and UTMB, when does your taper start?
Mm, it's usually like, I would say like a 10-day-ish taper. Yeah, and it's all like relative. Like it's not necessarily we just cut the volume completely. It's more like feel out your body, still try to go for a longer-ish run the weekend before. So even like 7 days out, I might still be doing 2.5-ish hours out on the trail. And it's like it's mostly to still have your metabolism uh, being able to process like how much you are going to take in during the race. So like I feel like your gut can forget very quickly what it's like to process like that amount of carbs. So just getting out and putting in that many carbs an hour still is important. At least that's kind of how we think about it. But the big goal is just like nothing too hard, and yeah,
But
just like
do
take
you
it
know
easy.
in the peak week in your preparation how much miles you ran like this year?
Mm, probably
Like
like
100
120.
miles, 120
Yeah,
miles in
yeah.
1 week.
Hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
And also, do you know the altitude? Do you for Westerns? Do you also? I guess you don't train so much the altitudes
Hmm.
like for UTMB.
Yeah, yeah. There's no real focus on it. It's just kind of what it comes out to. But we do a lot of work that is supposed to emulate like how the race profile is. So, if um, the goal for today is to really uh, emulate like the high country, we'll do climbs that simulate that. Um, or if the goal is to emulate the canyons, we'll do climbs that simulate that in the heat. And ultimately, it comes out to usually anywhere from like 15 to 20,000 feet per week. So it's like five to
Six.
7,000 meters. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Do you also do any strength work,
Hmm. Yeah,
like in the
usually
gym
twice a
or
week
with body weight? Twice a week in the gym or
in the gym.
okay,
Yeah. Hmm.
like specific for running or like the whole body?
Just running specific, really. A lot
Okay.
of mobility, just trying to like open up hips for the most part, and um, then like a lot of knee stability work and hamstring and glute work. Yeah. So those are kind of like the big ones.
What about some for regeneration? Do you go like to steam room or I don't know, cold plunge or massage? And how
Hmm.
often, if you do?
Yeah, massage. Definitely. I have a masseuse who I'm very close with. We work through everything together. If I'm, feeling, uh, any pain or anything like specific, I'll go more frequently. But for the most part, it's probably every other week when I'm in a big training block, I get a massage. And I don't do much cold plunge. I like to do it, but I don't necessarily do it for training. And then yeah, I'm in the steam room and sauna multiple times a week. Even when I'm not training for a hot race, I still am in there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now
Yeah.
we also gonna do just few trivia
Okay.
questions with like fast answers.
Yeah.
What do you like more, night run or day run?
Night run.
Downhill or uphill?
Downhill.
Pacer or no pacer?
Pacer.
Hunting or leading the race? To be the
Leading.
hunter, okay.
Yeah.
Intervals or long runs?
Long runs.
Mornings or evenings?
Evenings.
Mountains or seaside?
Mountains.
Sleep or food?
Food.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Meat or vegetables?
Vegetables.
Steam room or cold plunge?
Steam room.
Christmas or Halloween?
Ooh. Christmas, probably. Yeah.
Horror movies or comedy?
Comedy.
Basketball or football?
Basketball.
Swimming or cycling?
Cycling.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much, Rod, for your
Thank you.
time.
Yeah, it was a fun conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope we see you also that you come once to run a race in Slovenia. We have
Yeah.
some
Send me some recommendations. Yeah, would love to check it out. Yeah.
100%. And we have
Cool.
really good after Chamonix, like 2 weeks after Chamonix, 3 weeks after Chamonix. And it's close here. In the between, you can go through Italy, go some sightseeing, then you come to Slovenia. And I think you would enjoy it, 100%. You would
Cool.
see how generous are people here. And it's a bit different than in UTMB when it's so many people running here. It's on the aid station. It's totally different.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm
they're
sure.
more generous and very nice, welcoming. You're gonna love it, you'll see.
Love it.
Okay. Have time.
Thanks, Shore.
Have time.
Yeah. I appreciate
Enjoy.
it.
Thank you again.
Yeah,
Bye.
of course. Bye.
Bye bye.